I want to thank Dr. Hall for being here. She's a practicing general internist and investigator in the Division of Internal Medicine at Massachusetts General Hospital, and whose clinical and research interests are focused on identifying gaps in access to guideline concordant preventive genetic testing, as well as designing approaches to bring genomic medicine to the front lines of clinical care. We're really excited to have you here. Dr. Hall is going to present a short talk for us today, and yeah, I'll turn it over to her. So thanks, Dr. Hall.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having me here today. So today what I'm going to do is just talk to you a little bit about a small analysis that I worked on toward a few months, maybe 6-7 months ago at this point, and getting started with the All of Us data, starting to kind of take a peek into what was available there and starting to answer some questions that previously hadn't been able to be explored with some other publicly available databases. And so the title of my talk, we're going to be talking about self-rated family health history knowledge among All of Us program participants. And so to start off, I just wanted to mention that I have no financial disclosures and to acknowledge the All of Us research program support, as well as the partnership of its participants, and that I received support through a career development award. And the citation relevant to this presentation is here and can be accessed by anyone. And so to start off, the background for this study was that we know that disparities in access to genetic services are well documented, and that family health history is routinely used to determine whether patients should be screened for heritable conditions, whether a patient or person is considered for enhanced screening for preventable diseases, and sometimes whether preventive genetic testing will be reimbursed. But the extent to which a lack of or insufficient knowledge about one's family health history drives disparities in access to genetic services is unknown. So, for example, there have been other national surveys, such as the National Health Interview Survey and the NHANES, that ask questions about family health history, and have those responses self-reported by participants, but don't necessarily screen participants for kind of how much they know about their family history. And so the goal of this was to use the diverse All of Us cohort to test the hypothesis that self-rated family health history knowledge may be lower among groups that are historically underrepresented in research, which sometimes overlap as well with groups that have faced historic inequities in access to genetic services. And so if so, this could be a factor exacerbating disparities in access to genetic services. And so for this analysis, we used the All of Us version 5 curated data repository registered tier, data participant provided information. And so as we go through, I'll talk a little bit about what could be updated now that the controlled tier is available, including data from May 2018 to April of 2021. Upon enrollment in the All of Us research program, participants gain access to the first 3 surveys where they can provide information about themselves, including the basics survey, which includes questions about their sex at birth, gender identity, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, annual household income, and educational attainment. Another set of surveys, which includes the family health history survey, is made available to participants who have completed the initial 3 surveys. And so we included in our analysis the All of Us participants who had any basic survey data available. And we were interested primarily in participants' response to the first question on the family health history survey, which is, how much do you know about illnesses or health problems for your parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, and/or children? And participants are asked to rate this as a lot, some, or none. And then for those who indicate at least some knowledge about their family health history, they're directed on to specific questions about specific conditions and family members who may or may not have been affected. However, this question was somewhat unique in providing a screener about self-rated family health history knowledge that has not been present and was unique on other national surveys like the NHIS and NHANES that I mentioned before. We were then interested in whether certain characteristics were more or less likely to be associated with different levels of self-rated family health history knowledge. And so we included sex assigned at birth, male, female, or other. At this point in the registered tiered data, there were generalizations about both sex assigned at birth as well as possible sexual and gender minority status, where there were basically where a yes to possible sexual and gender minority status included non-straight sexual orientation, a gender identity other than male, female, non-binary sex at birth, or participants who either skipped these questions or indicated prefer not to answer. And so there was a level of granularity in terms of the responses to these questions that we acknowledge as a limitation. And so we tried to just acknowledge that at this point, there was not more granular information being released in the registered tier. Self-reported race, which included, or we grouped as Asian, Black, or African American, other. The groups that we made were, and white. We did have to combine another single population, more than one population, and none of these into a single group to make sure that our cell sizes complied with the all of us data requirements for ensuring adequate counts. Self-reported ethnicity, including Hispanic or Latino, not Hispanic or Latino, none of these, and missing. Annual household income, which we stratified at $25,000, mostly because we were interested in groups that had been defined as underrepresented in biomedical research to take advantage of kind of the uniqueness of the All of Us cohort and being able to be more diversely representative than some other databases in the past, as well as educational attainment. And so the dichotomizations there were based upon the UBR definitions. For our analyses, we included participant characteristics were initially compared across response groups using descriptive statistics. We used multivariate multinomial logistic regression to compare the associations between those who indicated either none or some family health history against a reference group of a lot of family health history knowledge. All covariates of interest determined a priori that we just discussed were included in the multivariate model, and associations were deemed significant in an alpha of less than 0.05, and we reported adjusted odds ratios, 95% confidence intervals, and p-values. And the analyses were performed in the All of Us researcher workbench, of course, in the Jupyter notebooks using our programming language. And so you can see some of the characteristics of the All of Us participants by their family health history, self-rated family health history knowledge. And so we included, as we mentioned before, the 329,000 individuals who had any information in the basic survey. But we did note that the majority of participants at that point had missing information from the family health history survey. 37% of out of the 116,000 that did respond to the family health history survey, including the initial question of interest, 37% reported a lot of family health history knowledge, 60% reported some family health history knowledge, and 3% reported none. And so what we took from that is that, a minority of participants who were filling out this survey reported a lot of knowledge, though only a small fraction reported none. There was not a question about adoption status or donor gamete or things like that. And so therefore, how we interpret none, we don't have more granular information about that group. When comparing those who had missing family health history survey data versus those with a lot of self-rated knowledge, we also noted that these groups, for example, there was higher representation of those who may be a gender and sexual minority, compared between missing and a lot. Those who were of non-white race, so a lot versus those. And for example, annual household income, there were disproportionately more people in the missing group, for example, who had less than $25,000 annual household income compared to those with a lot of family health history knowledge endorsed. And so we thought about, we don't have all of the details about this group, but that there may be some selection bias in terms of who is going on to taking part in the family health history survey, and ensuring that we try to consider that in interpretation of the survey responses. So next we looked at adjusted associations between our covariates of interest and self-rated family health history knowledge for the family history survey respondents. And so what we see here is that when we compare either no family health history knowledge versus a lot, or some versus a lot, those who were much older were less likely, so 65 or older were less likely to endorse none or some family health history knowledge. Those who were either yes or unknown for gender and sexual minority status were slightly more likely to endorse none or some versus a lot of family health history knowledge. Those who were self-identified as Asian, Black, or African American, or from one of the other race groups, were more likely to endorse none or some versus a lot family health history knowledge. And those who endorsed Hispanic or Latino, or none of these for ethnicity, were also more likely to endorse less family health history knowledge. Finally, we saw that among groups that endorsed lower annual household income or a less than high school graduate level of education were also at higher odds of endorsing none or some compared to a lot of family health history knowledge. And so what we found overall is that a minority of all of us participants that completed the family health history survey reported a lot of family health history knowledge, so 37%. And the largest group was those who indicated some. We also found that possible gender and sexual minorities, racial and ethnic minorities, and participants with lower household income and educational attainment were disproportionately represented among respondents who reported less family health history knowledge compared to those who indicated a lot. Some of the limitations are that this data set is not nationally representative, possible selection bias in who completed the family health history survey. There's no information available about adoption status or conception via a donor gamete. The studies do not assess the fidelity of self-rated family health history knowledge with family health history. And so there is the possibility and that people may remember what's most important for kind of their preventive care. And so we don't know how well some versus a lot correlates with kind of major family health history events. And then use of the control tier data, however, would allow for more granularity in terms of assessing some of these questions. For example, the relationship between gender and sexual minority groups and family health history knowledge. And so there are some opportunities kind of emerging to take a deeper dive as the data evolves in the program and as further data releases and more granular data is released. And then just some personal reflections on using the All of Us data and the researcher Workbench. Personally, prior to this project, I'd never worked in Jupyter Notebooks before this analysis. I'd never used R. I was a SAS user. I think that both are generous terms for me. But I found that using the cohort builder and the snippets, the demonstration projects, and searching through the community forum provided a nice experiential learning. And to complete this project kind of as a novice in this, using many of these tools, and felt very supportive. And honestly, what I've really enjoyed is feeling like I am growing in using those tools as the program starts to grow. And so it's felt like a nice natural evolution. And so that's actually all that I had. This is a short presentation, so I'll just take any questions.